Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show as we start your day off on Northeast Streaming Sports Network, Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Hall of Fame legendary boxing writer himself, Jack Hirsch, bringing you your sports breakfast live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Today's guest, Jack, are Carter B., our NHL analyst, and we'll also have on us a special guest, boxing star Cletus Selden, the Hebrew Hammer, talking about his big win against Willis, and he'll be on around 9 o'clock. So how you doing today, Jack?
William Silva at the Barclays Center, last Saturday.
Right. William Silva, correct. So, Jack, let's get right into it. World Series is coming up soon. We got two teams with 3 wins right now. Houston trounces Boston 9-1. They lead the series 3-2. Astros get 5 runs in the 6th inning. DH Jordan Alvarez goes 3 for 5 with 3 RBIs. Framber Valdez, the pitcher for the Astros, goes 8 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 5 strikeouts, and Ray Stanek closes it out. For Boston, Rafael Devers drives in the only run. Chris Sales didn't pitch too bad. He went 5 1/3 innings, 3 hits, gave up 2 earned runs, 7 strikeouts, and the bullpen gives up 4 more earned runs, Jack. So did you get a chance to watch the game yesterday?
Yeah, parts of it. Even though Boston is closer to Houston, they're down 3-2. I give the Dodgers actually a better chance down 3-1 to come back and win the series. Because last year the Dodgers were down 3-1 to Atlanta in the National League Championship Series and waged a comeback and won 3 in a row and then went to the series and went on to win it. The turning point with Boston, if they do lose this series, they're going to look at the game before, Game 4 of the series, with Nathan Eovaldi on the mound. 2 strikes on the batter. He appeared to throw a strike 3 on the replay. It was called a ball. Houston batter walked, and then that opened the floodgates, and Houston scored 7 runs, in the 9th inning to win that game. So had that been called a strike, Boston would have been coming up in the last of the 9th, and who knows what would have happened in that game. It's one of those you never know. But when they showed the replay, that appeared to be strike 3. In actual time, that looked like a ball to me. It's way outside. It curved in. So the umpires are human. We criticize them a lot. They don't have the benefit of the replay in certain instances. And on balls and strikes, the replay is not allowed in Major League Baseball. So I'm apt not to criticize the umpires too much in that regard.
I mean, it's been going on throughout history, right, Jack? I mean, all baseball games and all the championships and World Series, there have been calls that could have been made or should have been made that weren't, and as far as strikes and balls. I mean, you can go over that and over that. At the end of the day, Jack, right? I mean, it's human error. It normally works its way out. And, we don't remember 5 years from now that call. What we remember is the final score and, who won the series and who didn't.
But us umpires in a lot of cases wish they had a replay to bail them out. 1985 World Series with Don Deckinger, making that call, the St. Louis, Kansas City World Series, which Whitey Herzog, the manager of the Cardinals, felt Deckinger's call cost the Cardinals the World Series. Whether it did, it didn't, who knows? I mean, there's no way of telling for sure. And look at, Jim Joyce with Armando Galarraga, the perfect game, the missed call at first base with 2 outs in the 9th inning. He called the runner safe, where the replay conclusively showed the runner was out. Believe me, Jim Joyce would have loved to have had the benefit, of a replay to overrule him. Umpires are human too. They don't like to be overruled. It hurts their ego, their pride that they got it wrong the first time and that a replay's telling them they're wrong. But in big situations, if it comes down to that or the controversy that they're going to be involved in, they'd rather not be involved in big controversy.
So down in the minor leagues, they've been testing out, of course, that electronic ump. Do you think that's ever going to make it into MLB, Jack?
Well, there's got to be human element involved because part of the fun in baseball is arguing calls. Okay, was he safe? Was he out? You can't have the game too computerized because before you know it, you'll just need one man or woman on the field to act as the umpire for everyone if you have everything so computerized and set up. No, there's always has to be a human element involved. And even despite these replays, a lot of times they're not conclusive. To me, a replay should only be used if it's extremely conclusive. They keep playing us replays over and over and over again from every angle to figure out, is he safe out, safe out. In a certain sense, it's a bit of overkill at times, but that's another issue.
Yeah. Okay, so there you have Houston again with the lead. The Braves lead the series 3-1, play tonight at 8 p.m. Chance to clinch the NL championship. I'm not as confident as you, Jack. I mean, yeah, they did it last year, but last year the Dodgers came back and won. Last year is last year. It's not this year. And the Braves, listen, they're playing good ball. They're hot right now. And, I think Braves win this series, Jack.
And I'll tell you, it shows baseball, in a sense, is more a team game than any of the other sports. And that's going to seem like an odd statement because you're not passing the ball back and forth like in basketball. You don't need that chemistry. Same way with football and hockey and baseball. Even though it's more of an individual game, it's still more of a team game. A case in point, if you lose your star player in the NBA, you're not winning the NBA championship. It's just not going to happen. You lose your star quarterback in football, you're probably not winning the Super Bowl. But look in baseball, the Braves lost Ronald Acuna Jr., a star, the superstar player for them. And look how well that they're doing. The Washington Nationals, as soon as Bryce Harper left and went to the Phillies, their star player, they win the World Series. So in baseball, you can get by without your single star player. In the other sports, it's very, very difficult.
Okay, I could agree and disagree on both ends on that. So we should have Carter come in a couple minutes, and the NHL has started up, of course, and what's interesting to me is that they're back to the old way the leagues were set up, right? You got teams playing teams they didn't play during the regular season last year. You've got the Metropolitan Division now, and you got the Central Division, the Western Division, the Atlantic Division, the Atlantic and Metropolitan in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference, the Central and the Pacific Division. So let me get that all straight first. I wasn't sure if they were going to do that, Jack. I wasn't sure if they were going to go back to that old format or they're going to keep the new format. What do you think? Do you think it's good that they went back to the old format?
I kind of liked the new format when the pandemic started. There'd be less travel. It took me back to when we had rival leagues, American League against National League in baseball, just a little bit, the rivalries would just seem to be a little bit better. Now with all the teams playing one another, by the time they get to the finals, and as the playoffs go along in all the conferences, the teams would have seen enough of one another. I like a certain sense the mystique involved, kind of different league, a different division rivalries. We're going to have a little less of that. But listen, fans who go to the game live, it's also good for them to have an opportunity to see all the teams, not to have, it seems a little unfair not to have a franchise visit another city for like 2-3 years. So from that sense, I like it. You can make an argument both ways.
Yeah, definitely. So it's really interesting on what's going on over there. So I think with that kind of format, because we said last year we don't really know how good the teams are because they really didn't play anybody else but those certain 6 teams, and that was it. And then after that, they started playing each other. We found out that Tampa Bay and the Islanders were real good, and that the Canadians, up to their competition in that division, were good. but when they got in and they played Tampa Bay, they were really outclassed. So, I mean, I'm glad that we're seeing more teams playing each other than we did before. I think it leaves out the mystery you're talking about, Jack, right? Because they don't play each other. They didn't play each other all year. But yet, I don't think there'll be as much disappointment as some of the series that we got last year, because we really know who's the better teams in this type of format. And that's why I like it.
Well, I think in the bigger picture, it's a pivotal year for the NHL because ESPN, signed the NHL to a contract. I think it was a 7-year deal, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there, but that's what I think it was. And they're heavily promoting the NHL. They really are. They're pushing it. And if ESPN can't take the NHL to a little higher level to the average fan, then there's going to be a problem as far as marketability going forward. I mean, let's see, do they focus on particular players, on particular personalities? Let's see, do they get a new audience, a young audience, a big, much bigger audience? And that's what I'd look out for most, with the NHL. Not so much the purity of the game, old timers like myself, the interest we have. Are they getting a whole audience of new young people? That's what I want to see.
Good question.
Hello out there, we're on the air. It's hockey night tonight. Tension grows, the whistle blows, and the puck goes down the ice. The goalie jumps, and the players bump, and the fans all go insane. Someone roars, Holly scores, a good old hockey game. Oh!
So, Jack, every Thursday, we bring in our NHL expert, Carter B, and he's got something to talk about now because the offseason is done and the season is going. So let's bring up Carter and see what's going on in the hockey world. How you doing today, Carter?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Not too bad, Carter. So NHL is up. Me, Jack, we're just talking. The old divisions are back. There's no top secret teams anymore, whether they're good or bad. You're going to see all the teams playing each other for the most part. And I asked Jack this, Carter. Did you like the last year's format at all? Was there good points about it? Or do you like the older format they brought back where you renew some of the older rivalries and you get to see what the teams are really made of?
I don't know. It's a bit of a tough question to answer. I mean, I think it was pretty good for what the NHL kind of had to work with. Obviously the border restrictions last year didn't really allow them to play much outside of their division, so this was really all the NHL could do. So I guess in that sense I kind of liked it, but at the end of the day, I mean, it was kind of nice because they could promote rivalries more, right? You had teams like the Rangers and Islanders playing 8 times a year. Games like that were getting pretty heated. So, but I think at the end of the day, though, with the new divisions coming back, it'll be nice to see teams playing other clubs besides the same 7 teams on their schedule last year. So I think I definitely like the way that it's going back to better.
I mean, early in the season, let me ask you, Carter, is this a continuation of the preseason? The teams need a few extra weeks because just taking a quick glance at the standings, things are out of whack. The Buffalo Sabres have won all 3 games. The Montreal Canadiens have lost all 4 of their games. I mean, something is out of whack here. So is this a team still getting their legs under them? Is it kind of in an indirect way a continuation of the preseason before teams hit their stride and we see, the real them?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. And, I think that, you can't really go off of 3 or 4 games to show what a team's going to do, in an 82-game season, right? There's still a lot of hockey to be played. There's a lot of time for the teams that are kind of in the basement of the league right now to work their way up. And, Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put too much emphasis on on these first 3 or 4 games. I mean, it's nice that some of these teams are getting off to a good start, but it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, so you gotta make sure that you're in it for the long haul, and guess we'll have to see what happens down the line.
Everybody says that in every sport now. Even they're saying in football now, it's a marathon, not a sprint. But even though it's only 3 games, for instance, the Sabres, and you got I think in one division they all got 2 wins. I mean, those games are still important at the end of the year, Carter. I mean, if that one game, that 3 games the Sabres have won at the end of the year might be the 3 games that put them in the playoffs. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you still want to go out and win every game, right? I mean, or have a good record in the beginning, even though it is a long season. This comes back to bite you sometimes. I mean, suppose they're in the division with another team that is almost even with them, but them 3 games in the beginning of the year put them over the top. So while it is a marathon, I agree with you. It's very important that you win games and win them as many as you can. And hey, the Sabres aren't going to be challenged for no playoff spot. For a division championship anyway. But who knows? That 3 games may give them a little bit of edge at the end of the year, right?
Yeah, I guess you never know. And again, I mean, I don't really know how much sense it makes to say that in the NFL, considering it's 16 games. But at the NHL, I mean, you're playing 82 games over the course of 8 or 9 months. I mean, it truly is something that I mean, injuries are going to happen. There's no doubt about that. We're already seeing some teams banged up. So, it's all about, kind of battling through that adversity, right? I mean, the past 2 seasons, we haven't gotten to finish an 82-game schedule. So, it's going to be different for some clubs, whether or not they can, get to the playoffs completely healthy. And we'll I guess we'll kind of have to go from there and see how it all works out.
NBA coaches have adapted a new attitude, cutting down on minutes that their star players play, especially early in the season, to try to keep them fresh for the long haul in the playoffs. Does the NHL, have they started to adapt that attitude? Some coaches with star players, maybe not playing them as many minutes as in the past because they want them to be fresh and injury-free for the long haul.
I mean, maybe in the last 2 or 3 games of the season, if the team's already clinched a playoff spot and the game doesn't really matter to them, I guess it would make sense for them to do that. But I haven't really seen anything like that. I mean, at the end of the day, every team in the NHL is pretty competitive. I mean, teams like the Sabres might not be so hot at the end of the year, but at the end of the day, the NHL is a league where any team can win on any given night, right?
No, so, I mean a team like the Washington Capitals with Ovechkin. There's a good chance they're going to make the playoffs, at the very least, seriously contend. And you want him fresh towards the end of the year in the playoffs, and he's a veteran player. They're big scorer. Are they going to just maybe conserve him a little more, be a little more careful with him than they would be if he was younger, let's say?
I still don't see it happening unless they're in the playoffs. I mean,
it's hockey, right? It's hockey, Carter. It's not basketball. I mean,
no,
these guys want to go out.
It's 2 different games. You really can't compare them. I mean, the only thing that you can compare about the 2 is that they're 82 games. Outside of that, it's 2 completely different games. So you really can't say anything about the NHL that applies to the NBA.
Yeah, hockey players are playing with broken jaws and stuff. We're talking about NBA. They're a bunch of never mind.
You don't have many prima donnas in the NHL, I'll say that. I mean, a few, but not many.
Oh my God, those guys are going to play and they want to play, and that's what I love about the NHL. So let's take a little look at the locals, right? The Flyers beat the Bruins 6-3. Cam Atkinson with 2 goals. There was 25 shots on goals. 5 went in, for the Flyers. I mean, that was, I don't know. That's not a lot of goals shot on goal. That's a terrible showing, I guess, by Jeremy. I think it's Swayman, Carter. Don't you think? I mean, that's not a lot of goals, and most of them are going in. Do you attribute that to can you even attribute that to the defense? I mean, they played a good game, right?
I mean, if you give up 5 goals on 25 shots, I wouldn't call that an amazing defensive game. But, watching the game last night, there were a few that I think Swayman would have liked to have had back. I mean, there were a few weak ones that he gave up. So, I don't really think you can blame it on one thing or the other. I mean, Boston had a tough game last night, and I don't know how much of it was necessarily Philly was the better team, but at the end of the day, Philly walked away with the 2 points, so can't really talk too much about it.
Speaking of Philly, their coach Adam Vignault, AV, a lot of people felt going into this year AV would be on the hot seat, that he might not even finish out the year if the Flyers got off to a slow start. So how much pressure do you think there was on him to get off to a quick start? And they have gotten off to a quick start. They haven't lost in 3 games, 2 victories and a tie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much pressure there necessarily was, and you can listen to all the rumors that you want, but I think at the end of the day, Flyers management, they were, they like Vigneault as a coach. They like, the way he coaches, the style of play that he brings to the table, and I think the big thing was that they really wanted to improve their team defense last season, and they went out and they addressed that. They brought in a few defensemen that, were kind of looking to revitalize their careers in Philadelphia. I mean, it's a little questionable because none of them are really too amazing in their own end, but they seem to be, pretty solid over the course of the young season so far. I don't really see Vigneault being in too much trouble unless the Flyers just go on like a complete nosedive and just tank and miss the playoffs completely again. But it's hard to see that happening with the way that they've started. But again, it's a long season. So,
well, finishing up with the game, Martin Jones had 40 shots on his goal, and he had 37 saves. So, there's Martin Jones doing his job over there in goalie, for the Flyers. So, as Jack mentioned, break up the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, listen, they're out to 3-0. It's not a big deal. But despite all that offseason drama, Carter, that's the only thing I was saying, well, maybe these guys are going to go in there, with their star player. Maybe they're going to have a rough go in the beginning. They don't seem to. They had 5 different players with a goal. The Sabres goalie saves 32 out of 34 shots. Had a pretty good game. So that offseason drama over there about the injury to their star player didn't really affect them so far. I don't know if it'll catch up with them later or not, but that's the only thing I was worried about with the Sabres, Carter.
I mean, yeah, to be honest, that's really the only thing that, no offense, that's the only thing there is to talk about the Sabres, right? And it might look like they're, playing pretty well without Eichel now, but, let's be honest, this pace for a full 82-game stretch, especially with, with how good their division is. I mean, some of these teams are bound to heat up, and the Sabres are going to cool down at some point, so I just don't see it working out.
I hear you. The Devils are 2-0 defeat the Kraken, 4-2, 4 different Devils with a goal. Goalie Jonathan Bernter saves 27 out of 29 goals. Are the New Jersey Devils any threat this year? Have they made any major moves off-season, Carter, where they can be competitive this year?
Yeah, they made a few. I mean, they went out and I think the big thing was they signed Dougie Hamilton, good defenseman in free agency. So, that was something that they really needed. I don't think the Devils had like a main, a number one defenseman that can run the power play, and that they're getting that in Dougie Hamilton. So, yeah, I mean, outside of that, they've added a few pieces here and there, but Hamilton was definitely the big one. So, yeah, I mean, they look good so far, but again, long season. They've played, they've played pretty well so far, but we'll have to see down the line when, when it really starts to count, if they can step up in the big moment.
Definitely. So the last one I want to talk to you about, the Rangers playing okay for the beginning of the year. The New York Islanders get their first win versus the Chicago Blackhawks, 4-1. Wahlstrom leads with 2 goals. Sorokin has 39 out of 40 shots. was important at least to get that first win, right, Carter? I mean, you don't want to go 0-3, 0-4, 0-5. I mean, they got it done. The white. I'm ready to say the Chicago White Sox, the Chicago Blackhawks. They haven't won a game yet, but again, it's got to feel good to the players to get that first one under their belt.
Yeah, it always does, and like you said, I mean, you try not to focus on going on long losing streaks like that when you haven't won it a little bit, but I think the thought's always there, but at the end of the day, they were able to get it done. Pretty solid showing over a Blackhawks team that struggled a little bit, but at the end of the day, you take what you can get. I mean, these are the games that if you don't win, you look back on, when you're 2 points out of the playoffs and wish you would have taken, right? So,
right.
I mean, just nice to see him get on the board, and hopefully, they got some other teams that are kind of in the same position as the Blackhawks here. So, hopefully they can kind of capitalize on some of these victories here and, string a couple together.
Are you ready for that? I don't think they've done it yet. Are you ready for that opening day, Carter? I mean,
that's not for a while. Yeah, I'm ready for it. But
how long are they? That's one thing I don't understand. Why are they waiting so long for this? Why are they waiting for?
I had to tell you something funny. I drove by the arena yesterday, and my wife commented. I said, "That's the new arena. The Islanders are going to be playing at the UBS Arena." And she wasn't impressed to how it looked on the outside. It kind of looked very unusual. It didn't look like a state-of-the-art or anything fancy. It kind of looked a little like a glorified warehouse on the outside. I mean, I'm sure it's beautiful on the inside, and the facilities are great. And I love the location. I mean, if you're traveling by car, it's a very nice location. But it didn't look overly impressive, on the outside.
Look at Jack throwing stuff at your Islander news.
I'm just saying. I mean, listen, it's nice. Don't get me wrong. It's nice, but it didn't look like a modern state-of-the-art arena from the outside. It's not going to catch your eye. Wow, this is really fancy. Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, but it is in a great location. So I give the Islanders credit for picking a real good place. It's in a better location than the Nassau Coliseum in general to get to, in my view, transportation-wise.
Yeah, it seems to be anyway, and the inside's definitely going to look better than the outside. So, but it's all right though. You're allowed to be wrong. It's okay.
I gotta give it a second look. I just drove by it.
Have you drove by the outside yet, Carter? Have you drove by the new place yet?
I've been on the inside. I've gone on tours on it before. It's looking really nice. So, I've heard people say some of the same, that on the outside it doesn't look like too much, but how much are you going to be paying to the outside when there's a hockey game going on the inside, right? So. I don't know. It's kind of my
agree on that. It's what matters on the inside of the arena. That's the main thing. Because in all honesty, you look at Madison Square Garden. If you didn't know that was a shrine, it's in the heart of the city. You pass by, you might not think Madison Square Garden was much if you didn't know the history of it. Yeah.
There's Jack walking back his comments. Today, Carter, we've got the Devils versus the Capitals, the Rangers at the Predators, Islanders at the Blue Jackets. They're playing at 7. I mean, as you said, it's early and it's hard to really, to break down things. What are you looking for the Islanders tonight? Are you just looking for them to win anyway? I mean, 4-1 is not a bad score. That's offense and defense going up against the Blue Jackets. Just another win is what you're looking for, right? Get some kind of momentum here in the early in the season.
Yeah, again, I mean, you just want to try and build some momentum here, and with Columbus, I mean, they were a team that everybody kind of wrote off to start off the season, right? So, they've started out pretty well. I mean, they're going to be a team that's, they might not be, the greatest team come season's end, but they're going to be competitive. They're not going to be a pushover at all, right? So, again, it's about winning the games that you have to, and this is going to be a good test for the Islanders here tonight.
I
Good.
don't think momentum means anything early in the year. Now I think it's the points where Mac mentioned late in the year. It comes back to haunt you. You know, you lose a couple of games here and there early in the year. You don't think much of it. You feel you have a lot of time. But when you're battling for those playoff positions, a seeding late in the season, these games really come back to haunt you. So they are very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, again, you know, building off your point, you don't really think of these games until you're 1 or 2 points out, right? You know, until you wish you kind of not put more effort into games like this, but you know, kind of wish you know, you had taken this game against a team that you're better than on paper, right? So, but again, I mean, you know, I think it doesn't really matter when it is. I think it's always nice to just string a couple games together with points, kind of build some, you know, a little bit of momentum at least. I mean, the Metro's a tough division, so any momentum the Islanders can build, it would be nice to do so. But again, it's really just about just, you know, gaining points at this point.
And a lot, Carter, is about chemistry, right? You're working on chemistry on your lines. You're working on your defensive chemistry and getting the puck back out of there, how you're setting up plays. I think a lot of this in the beginning is a lot of chemistry issues with players, getting back with the older lines, getting the new players in there if you're going to bring them in, getting your work in. As Jack said, maybe an extension of preseason, but you definitely want to do good. But I understand what you're saying. You know, the team has got to get its chemistry together, whatever that chemistry is or whatever type of team you have. We know the Islanders are a defensive team first, but they do got to pick up their scoring, and that's what you want to look for. I would, as a coach, that's what I would want to look for anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, again, I mean, you know, it takes time for players to kind of gel together a little bit, right? I mean, you know, I know some of these guys have been playing together for years, but it's still, you know, it takes time to kind of, you know, wear off the rust of the off season and kind of get back into, you know, into your mid-season form, right? So, again, I mean, it's you know, just about, you know, just kind of shaking off the, you know, the rust and, you know, again, just kind of building up points as the season goes along.
Yeah, Carter, Lou Lamoriello basically tweaked the Islander team, you know, for this year, showing he had faith in what they did the last 2 years, and they're just one step away from winning the Stanley Cup. But let's say the Islanders should flounder a bit, okay, take a step back. Lou Lamoriello's not scared to make moves. Can you envision him making a major move?
If you know, if the timing's right for it and if the situation, you know, calls for a move to be made, then yeah, I could definitely see something happening. But you know, the Islanders cap situation isn't the greatest to start out with right now, so you know, you got to take that into account, of course. And you know, at the end of the day, you kind of got to see what the trade market looks like. You know, you don't want to make a move just for the sake of making a move. You got to make sure that, you know, you would believe that, you know, first of all, the player would be a good fit on your team, and second of all, he would, you know, be willing to play that kind of defensive structure that the Islanders, you know, that the Islanders are so well known for nowadays. So, you know, a lot of pieces have to kind of come together for that to happen, but it definitely wouldn't shock me.
And Carter, is this a rebuilding year for the Rangers, or did they have serious aspirations of making the playoffs? I mean, how is this year being looked at by the Ranger organization?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think obviously they want to take that next step. I think they feel they're ready to take that next step. You know, they have a good team on paper. I mean, their top six is pretty good. They got a pretty good young blue line, and you know, they got Igor Shesterkin and Alex Georgiev in net. So, you know, this team definitely has the potential to be really good on paper. It just depends on, it depends on if they can kind of, you know, mesh together like they were at the end of last season. They went on a little bit of a run and nearly made it. And, you know, B, I mean, this division's also really, really tough, right? You got a lot of teams that, you know, like you got the Penguins, Caps, Islanders, Hurricanes. You know, everybody's expecting those four to make it. You got Philly in there who's looking to bounce back from last year. You got New Jersey who's kind of looking to bounce back from last year too. So, you know, it's not impossible for the Rangers to make it, but, you know, I wouldn't say the odds are necessarily in their favor.
I definitely agree with that, Carter. Thanks for coming on, Carter, and sharing some of that hockey information with us. I mean, here we go, man. Let's see what happens. A week from now, I imagine things will change a little bit as we go through the hockey season. Have a great day, Carter. We'll see you again next week.
All right, guys. Take care.
You too, my friend. So there you go, Jack. Carter B with his NHL update. Season has started. We're getting ready to roll. Every sport is going out.
He's a hockey man. He's going to keep us informed all year.
Definitely. So, folks, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take well, before we do that, let me do something, Jack, that we do every Thursday. I mean, there's certain thing to be said about making, the Hall of Fame. But when you make the Mac and Jack's Wall of Fame, you're something special. Because we only take the best of the best, Jack. I mean, there's best, and then there's the best. So this week we're finishing off our baseball part of the Wall of Fame. And going in today, Jack, is a third baseman named Eddie Matthews. Played from 1953 to 1968 for the Boston, Milwaukee, and Atlanta Braves, the Astros, and the Tigers, a 19-time All-Star. The NHL home run champ in 1953 and 59. Two-time World Series champion, Jack. And believe it or not, back then the power hitters could even hit for average, folks. Average 271 lifetime. 2,315 hits, 512 home runs, Jack, and 1,453 RBIs. There you go, Jack.
Eddie Matthews was Hank Aaron's sidekick. They formed one of the best 1-2 punches, as far as power hitting went in baseball history. I know Eddie Matthews was a World Series champion, third baseman for the Milwaukee Braves in the 1957 season when they beat the Yankees in the series. And then they lost to the Yankees in 7 games in the 58 World Series when the Yankees came down from 3 games to 1. But Eddie Matthews, I mean, that's a name that's gotten lost in time. When you talk about the greatest third baseman of all time, Eddie Matthews is never given the love he should get. I mean, you look at the numbers, the 2,315 hits doesn't seem overly impressive for a 19-year career. It seems solid. It's not like 3,000 hits. The 271 average is very good for power hitter Eddie Matthews' stature, and he was a very good defensive third baseman. So I don't understand a guy who was a 19-time All-Star and accomplished all he had, how his name isn't mentioned over time. Because if I throw great third baseman at you, you're going to say Brooks Robinson, you're going to say Mike Schmidt, you're going to say George Brett, you're going to say Wade Boggs, but you're never going to say Eddie Matthews, and that's unfair because Eddie Matthews is right up there with, the names I just mentioned, and you can make an argument he's better than even one or two of them. I mean, outstanding career. And if Hank Aaron was 1A, Eddie Matthews is 1B. Eddie Matthews is right there. Or another way, Hank Aaron was the guy number 1, but Matthews was 1A. If Hank Aaron was Michael Jordan, Eddie Matthews was Scottie Pippen to him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you think that 500 home runs, and like I said, he led the National League 2 times. So, I mean, he was quite the power hitter, a great offensive player. I don't know about defensively, Jack. I don't know if he rates up there with the best defensive players at all times.
No, he was a decent defensive third baseman. No, he wasn't in the league of Brooks Robinson, hypothetically, or Greg Nettles. But he was solid, He was a good defensive third baseman. He wasn't a liability there.
Not at all. And, I mean, I'm surprised when we talk about the great players of the 50s, 60s, that Eddie Matthews is not mentioned more. So, folks, that's our Wall of Fame. Go over to nessp.info, our website. check out the Wall of Fames. You got all kinds of stuff there. We got our show lineups. We got information. We got all our guests, our insiders. But if you want to check out the Wall of Fame, it's quite a Wall of Fame over there. NESSP.info is how you get there. It's a pretty good site. So when you get a chance, check it out. So now, Jack, we will take our first break of the game at 9 o'clock, guys. We have Cletus Selden, a very, very good, I think he's a super lightweight, Jack.
Yeah, I call it junior welterweight. It's the same thing, super lightweight, junior welterweight.
Right.
Junior welterweight was the old term. That's the 140-pound division in boxing.
And let me tell you, I mean, he's starting to break up into the top rankings of boxing, getting up there close to the top 10. He has a hell of a right. I mean, I got some video that I do want to show him if I can later, even though the video sometimes goes choppy when I do use older videos, but I do want to try and show that to you guys. He's got a hell of a right. He'll be in. And I just got word that we may have a special guest dropping in at 9:30. Me and Jack talked about him before the show. He just got in contact with me while Jack was talking, and he might make it at 9:30. So stay tuned. We might have another special guest, folks, at 9:30. It's very exciting. So let's go ahead and take our first official timeout for today, Jack. And we'll be right back, folks, with a lot more sports information and some special guests coming up. Stick with us.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Chock full of nuts is that heavenly coffee, heavenly coffee, heavenly coffee. Chock full of nuts is that heavenly coffee, better coffee a millionaire money can't buy.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
McDonald's is our kind of place. It's such a happy place. Happy place. A clean and happy place. McDonald's is our kind of place. It's such a happy place. McDonald's is our kind of place. Your kind of place.
McDonald's believes in getting food to your kids before they get to each other. Such good food, too. McDonald's famous French fries, triple thick creamy shakes, lean beefy cheeseburgers and hamburgers, icy cold soft drinks. And here's a plus, spill-proof lids on all beverages. Another plus, napkins that are big as a bib. Quality, cleanliness, extra care service. That's McDonald's. A total value that's unmatched anywhere.
McDonald's is our kind of place. It's such a happy place. McDonald's is our kind of place.
Your kind of place.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211-INFO-LINE. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
My gray hair makes me feel so old. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna wash that gray right out of my hair. I'm gonna wash that gray right out of my hair.
Loving Care Color Lotion from Clairol washes away your gray and washes in your own natural color. Loving Care is different. It's gentle. It has no peroxide or ammonia.
So I wash that gray right out of my hair. Oh yes, I wash that gray right out of my hair.
Wash that gray right out of your hair with Clairol Loving Care.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Now we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, legendary boxing writer himself and sports historian, really, Jack Hirsch. And Jack, I don't know if you heard me playing the Clairol, commercial, but I know you use that still, but it's not working, Jack. The gray is still in your hair, Jack.
I'll settle for the gray as long as that doesn't leave me too.
Yeah, you had a fine head of hair. Way back
when I was younger, yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't recognize you there. So
how come it's okay? How come it's not okay for men to wear toupees? I never considered wearing a toupee, but how come it's not considered okay? There used to be the joking between Muhammad Ali and Howard Cosell, where Ali threatened to take off his hairpiece.
Yes.
And people were laughing like that would have been embarrassing. How come that guys can dress up in the fanciest outfits and they get admired, but if they wear a toupee, they're ridiculed? How come?
Yes. I don't know, Jack, to tell you the truth. There have been others than Howard Cosell, famous people that have wear toupees, and, if a strong wind comes along, that can fly off, and it's embarrassing, even though everyone knows it's a rug. But I never worried about a toupee either. I still got a good amount of hair left on top, so I'm not too worried about it for a few more years. But
well, I don't think you're that proud of it, Matt, because you're always wearing a hat.
Yeah, this hat is a very special hat to me, Jack. That's why I wear it. But I do get a lot of compliments when I do go out and do interviews on my hat. I mean, people wish they could find a hat like mine, but it is one of a kind, folks. It's specially made by Amazon. You can go and get it. I don't know how much it costs, but anyway, yeah, that we do. Let's talk a little bit about the NFL game tonight, Jack, before Cletus comes on. He's scheduled to come on, and hopefully he makes it in with us today. I'd love to talk to him. Tonight you got the Cleveland Browns versus the Denver Broncos. They both started out hot. They're now falling to 500 at 3-3. The Cleveland Browns look like a ER unit. I mean, Baker Mayfield is definitely out. Keenan gets the start. Hunt's hurt. He probably won't play. Chubbs is hurt. The two offensive tackles are questionable. And, like I said, they both have dropped. I think Denver will pull it out tonight, Jack. I mean, I mean, if they can't beat Cleveland without all these starters and with everybody hurt, when would they beat the Cleveland Browns?
Von Miller claims he's going to bring it tonight, that he's going to have a really, really big game. And that's kind of a little unusual, a star like him talking like that. But I could sense underneath all that, no one mentions it, there's a little bit of a rivalry there. He sees Myles Garrett and he sees people talking so highly of Myles Garrett, as if Myles Garrett is taking his place in the pedestal, that people think Von Miller slipped a little because he was out with the injury last year, and that Myles Garrett's now the guy. So even though Von Miller hasn't said that straight out, he's looking to have a big game. Now with Baker Mayfield out, how that's going to affect the Cleveland Browns, you don't know. Case Keenum has been he's like the perfect backup quarterback. He's had experience as a starter. Just about 2-3 years ago, he had a big year as a starter for the Minnesota Vikings, led him into the playoffs, had a playoff win, as well. And in Case Keenum was then signed by the Denver Broncos, and they intended for him to be the starter. That didn't work out. And the reason it didn't work out because the man's not a high caliber starting quarterback. He's a good fill-in. He can start for a team for a short period of time, and that's about it. So for this one given game, he might play very well. Who knows? And Cleveland, are they underachieving? If they lose this game, wow, they might be the old Cleveland Browns who might finish this year up with something like an 8-9 record. If they win this game, win it handily, their eyes are still on a Super Bowl berth. They're then still one of the elite teams. It's not a make or break game by any means tonight, the result, but it's a game that gives us a really good indication. And also the Denver Bronco team, I think, was kind of a little overrated by many. Vince Fangio, their head coach, is considered a defensive specialist, but their defense has been so-so. And Teddy Bridgewater, also, I mean, he started the season real well. But let's be honest, this is Bridgewater's 15. He's a competent quarterback, but that's about it. He's not a difference maker by any means.
No, I mean, the biggest knock against Bridgewater is that when he gets to the bigger games, he can't lead the team. But, you could say the same thing about Baker. I mean, last year they were one play away from beating the Kansas City Chiefs. There's no doubt about it. But he's getting a lot of injuries, Jack, and he's not a big guy. And he's not the fastest guy. He's no Kyle Murray. I mean, he's quick. He can throw on the run well. But is he really that franchise quarterback? I mean, there's still question marks.
No, as far as paying him like a franchise quarterback. Listen, you're not going to pay Baker Mayfield like he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in football. You're just not, unless, of course, he comes back this year and he leads the Browns to the Super Bowl and he's outstanding. Maybe they reconsider. But then, even then, I think that would be a bit of an illusion. Baker Mayfield can be the Browns quarterback long term if he can fit in under the cap the right way. He's competent. He's good. He's just not outstanding. And they can't afford to pay him like an elite quarterback because the NFL has a cap. So if you pay Baker Mayfield that way, you're making sacrifices at other positions. So maybe they could sit down with Baker and say, look, this is the best situation for you because Cleveland's the best situation for him. Where else is he going to go? Is he going to go to the Detroit Lions and they're going to sign him to a big deal and he's going to be on a losing team for years to come that way? Cleveland is the best place for him because the Cleveland Browns can win with Baker Mayfield as their quarterback. And when you think of what's out there in the draft, are they going to get anyone better? It's easy to say, well, get rid of Baker Mayfield, but who else are you going to get? I mean, there's no one out there who you're going to really get better than him. So, and, he knows the system. They've been successful with him to an extent. You point out they could have won that playoff game with Kansas City last year. Then they would have played Buffalo in the AFC Championship game, and maybe they win that game and go to the Super Bowl. So who knows what would have happened. But
Yeah,
Baker
I mean,
Mayfield's gotten ridiculed a lot this year, maybe a little more than he should have.
well, if you look at the division right now, you got Baltimore who just got done destroying the Chargers with some old school pounding, ground and pound. You got the Bengals playing out of their mind right now, and even the Steelers playing good, not great, but good. I mean, if you think about it, if they can't get them injured players back, Jack, they may finish last in the division.
Well, tonight's going to give us a little bit of an indication. I think they should beat the Broncos tonight. I think they're a better team. They're a little bit banged up. Jarvis Landry coming back means a lot at wide receiver. I know you have to 1-2 him and Odell Beckham Jr., but Jarvis Landry is more important to the Cleveland Browns than Odell Beckham Jr. Let's think of Odell Beckham Jr.'s stock. When he was with the Giants, he was considered a superstar in New York. Like the thought of trading him, it was unthinkable. But Odell Beckham Jr. kind of forced the issue with his attitude. And, and look what happened there. I mean, the grass wasn't greener going to Cleveland, not by any means at all. This isn't to say that Beckham's career is over and he's not going to do big things down the line. He might not. But it's really interesting when a guy's riding high, how his stock could sometimes, fall. And in the case of Odell Beckham, his has fallen as much as anyone's in this league.
Yeah.
Cleveland should win. If Cleveland's the type of team we think they are, if they're Super Bowl contender, they should beat Denver. Denver's been struggling a bit lately, so this is a pivotal game for them. But I just think Cleveland is the team we've made them out to be, a Super Bowl contender. I don't think the Denver Broncos are the team that a lot of people made them out to be in the preseason.
Well, you may be right. They may be a Super Bowl contender. I don't think it's going to happen tonight, Jack. I really not as banged up as they are. I mean, if you're talking offensive tackles against that Denver pass rush, they're going to give them fits. And Denver definitely needs to win to keep pace with the Chargers and Raiders. I don't know. I think this game is because of the injuries. I think Denver can beat them. If they were healthy, no. I don't think we're
Matt, you answer me this question, and I'm not sure what the answer is. You might have an opinion on it. Who has the advantage? Case Keenum was a quarterback for the Denver Broncos a couple of years ago. Some of the guys on defense on Denver, he practiced against, each day. Who has an advantage as far as knowing one another's tendencies? Will Case Keenum have a little bit of an advantage, or will the Denver Bronco defense have a little bit of an advantage knowing him?
I don't think with the offensive tackles banged up, Jack, that it would matter even if right now if Baker was out there. I think they would have a load of problems. They're a running team first. They got one of the best running games in the league, but their running backs, Hunt's out and Chubbs is banged up. Where's the offense going to come from? I mean, maybe Keenum throws well and they score a couple touchdowns, but I don't see it happening tonight.
But Cleveland has an elite defense themselves.
Yeah.
So where's it going to come from? You have to look at the Cleveland Brown defense, which has been a little disappointing this year, to be honest.
Yeah.
They haven't shown they showed a level of dominance when they played the Chicago Bears,
Right.
where they continuously sacked Justin Fields, 9 sacks, and didn't give Justin Fields room to breathe. They overpowered the Chicago Bear offensive line that game, and they're going to have to come up with that same type of effort again tonight. I think they can, actually.
Hey, listen, I just think that if the Denver Broncos were to beat the Cleveland Browns, this would be the game they would do it. At full strength, there's no way they would do it. Folks, backstage we got right now, one of the newer, exciting boxers, I think, in all boxing. He's getting in the top rankings of the world right now at his super lightweight or light welterweight, however you want to put it. They're both almost the same, but what a right hand this man has. We're glad that he came in. We've had an interview with him before. He's very confident, and he showed why last fight. Let's bring in Cletus Selden, the Hebrew Hammer.
How you guys doing? I'm good. Nice and early. It's nice
Hey,
to
Cletus, how you doing? And you're not training now, are you? You just fought last Saturday.
No training. Basically my entire summer was supposed to be for the September 4th fight that I was supposed to have, which got canceled. So I've been doing absolutely nothing but going to the gym every day, working out. So I get to actually get back to real life world stuff inside the world. So I'm at my parents' house right now, helping out, sorting out all my stuff and enjoying myself. This is like my best week ever. I gotta say, it's like the best, the best.
Well,
week ever.
it had to be a pleasant surprise when the Lopez Campos fight fell through to get the main event at the Barclays Center. I mean, to main event in a major venue like that. I mean, that's big. That had to be a big thrill. That had to get you really excited, you know, to have the main event there.
Absolutely. And I think we only had like about 12-day notice on it too. So from when they said, hey, possibly this might happen to, hey, this is happening, we have like 12 days. So I'm like scrambling as much as possible. And then being at the Barclays Center on that Triller network, it was so much fun. I had a blast for sure.
I mean, the fight we were talking about before. You know, your opponent did fight Teofimo Lopez, which is a big fighter. So that's some name recognition there that you fought this, and not only you fight him after the 5th round, and he was dancing in the beginning of the fight all around the ring. You started putting that pressure on him, and after that 5th round, you really started bringing it to him, Cletus.
Yeah, because of the fight, and if you haven't trained a certain style against me for like knowing that I'm going to come after you, you're going to have big issues with your endurance and your legs. So if you're boxing the whole time and you're not used to boxing, 10 rounds like that, you're going to run into some issues, especially if I start bringing in some body work and then start laying down the hammer.
Well, I was ringside at the Turning Stone Casino for your fight with Zab Judah. You might not remember when the fight was over and you were leaving the ring with Ron Katz. I actually asked you a couple of questions, So you saved me the time of going to the press conference because I got your information that way. Thanks.
Good
but
stuff.
you kept but that's basically your style. The early rounds, it might not look like you're doing much, but you actually are by putting on a lot of pressure on the opponent. And it tells as the fight goes along.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the big thing is always staying true to my jab, even though it's not like a real pop jab, just working it so that you can't get your punches off and you can't move. So I just keep throwing it out there, And then people don't realize these little shots over and over and over and over. Zab Judah fight especially, those little shots all night long, just get them and get them and get them. I was really impressed with his grappling. He just knew how, he was really wrestling with me on the inside. And Brodsky told me in one of the rounds, he's like, let him keep wrestling you. Don't try as much because he's getting really tired from it, from the grappling. And as soon as he started getting a little tired, I started throwing some uppercuts in there. And I was like, all right, because I kept getting him at the end of the rounds.
Yeah, I saw what you were saying that your corner was just saying, giving them 2 and then come up with that uppercut and work the body best you can. But I'm going to tell you, you got a hell of a right hand, Cletus.
Ooh.
If you got a second, I'm going to try and share some of the highlights of some of your fights here with that right hand. I'm going to bring it up right now. And folks, boxing, of course, it's a lot about styles. And if you're true to your style, you might get a bad matchup now and then where, your style may not work against somebody else. But I'm going to tell you right now, folks, I would not want to be in the way of that right hand when Cletus lets it go. Let's see if we can bring it up and share some of your highlights, Cletus.
All right.
That short right is dangerous.
Yes, first round. That's a first round knockout right there, that one. That's a first round knockout as well. That was another first round knockout.
You're like, what do you want me to do there? Look at it run. Damn. And there it shows your body work too, Cletus. When you're going to the body, you're even hurting people with that short left and stuff when you're coming inside. So I mean, not only power with that right hand, which is quick and a hard shot, but that left to the body does some damage too when you're going to the body hard.
Yeah, I try to throw my punches pretty hard, obviously, but if I get the right angle, I get a few good of those body shots, and it's just too much for a lot of people to handle. And then, if I just got to hit you one time. I just got to hit you one time.
I love it.
That's it.
I love it.
Cletus, you're going into the fight with Silva. You were rated in the top 15 by in the junior welterweight division. I still call it junior welterweight. A lot of people same to you. I don't know which term you like to use. I'm an old timer when it was only called junior welterweight. In the top 15 by the WBA and the IBF. I mean, this win over Silva, there's a good chance it'll maybe elevate you into the top 10. A very good chance in one of maybe both of the sanctioning bodies' ratings. And that would make you eligible for a title shot. Now, I joking around in the beginning of the show said, oh, you're not training or whatever. But isn't it important to always be in top shape? Hypothetically, Teofimo Lopez is fighting George Kambosos now on November 27th, I think it is, at the Madison Square Garden. Let's say Kambosos, for whatever reason, pulls out of the show 2 days before, and they need an opponent to save the show. You would be a viable opponent, maybe not for a title shot making weight because it's a lightweight fight still. But isn't it important for a guy like you, who's not a mandatory challenger, to always be in shape? Because now you might be considered acceptable to bring in on short notice to fight a high-profile champion. You ever think about that?
Absolutely. So one of my biggest things is when I'm not in boxing, I usually do a lot of running. Like tomorrow, my plan is to run 20 miles tomorrow. Like that was my thing, to do my 20-mile run tomorrow. And then I do the hot yoga, Pilates, and the running. And then I like to play a lot of basketball as well. So for me, it's always been I think my addictions with fitness overall, and my style of boxing is based off of more nutrition and endurance in the rounds. And you're absolutely right, being in that top shape. And then also knowing when and how to do it. When I was training for that September 4th fight, I was extremely drained from training so hard. And then I was able to take off 2 weeks. And I came back to the gym for that last bout, and I was in phenomenal shape because of the good long rest after training so hard for the fourth bout.
So you keep a small, tiny eye on Teofimo Lopez's November 27th fight, figuring if by some chance his opponent pulls out a week before whatever, I can pounce. I can jump right in there, and you let it be known that you're available. And sometimes that's how a big opportunity comes up out of nowhere, because they'll need you just as much as you're going to need them at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. The same thing that happened with the silver card for the Trilla. They needed a replacement as fast as possible. And, when opportunity comes, you better be ready for it, because if not, you never get one ever again. And look what happened from that one. DeGuardia offered me silver at the Paramount in November. So I was like, I don't know about that. But then all of a sudden that shows up.
Boom.
Icing on the cake, let's go. So definitely for sure. I did a post-fight interview with Michael Woods. I said, yeah, Teofimo Lopez would definitely be on the radar as well, because I heard he wants to move up to 140. And for me, at that, my positioning and my style can be a big spot if you want to be a world champion. For me to be a turning stone for the next person. So if you want to be a contender, you'd have to.
I'll admit I was a little bit of a skeptic after your second HBO fight. You fought on HBO twice. The first time you were sensational, scoring that early knockout. And honestly, even you would admit it, you didn't look too good the second time you're on HBO. You dropped a lopsided decision. It was a fiasco as far as you're concerned. I'm sure you'd like to forget about it. But I remember speaking to your promoter, Joe DeGuardi, saying, I don't know where you go from here with Selden. That was a performance. They're not going to want him back. And I remember him saying, no, Selden will be back in the mix. He didn't seem too shaken by it. But what was your reaction after you appeared on HBO 2 times? Because that was like the holy grail, you appearing on HBO.
Yeah, man.
Especially since you looked great the first time. And then after you lost the second time, was that the lowest point in your career, that second loss on HBO?
Yeah, absolutely.
Second fight on HBO.
Yeah, the second fight, I went from October being like the greatest thing ever to November to being the worst thing that's ever stepped forth. I think somebody even wrote an article and they put me as number 10 for reason why HBO boxing has failed.
Wow.
I was like, okay. I was like, wow, that's a cool list. Thanks.
But go ahead. Sorry.
I fought 3 fights in 11 weeks. After the fight was over, I got Tommy John surgery, and I would fight Ulysses again if the ring was much smaller too. That ring was so big that I always say I could have had a handful of rocks. I could never hit that guy ever. I would never even be able to touch him. And I definitely had a low point. I had Tommy John surgery, one of the worst surgeries in sports. And I fought really hard. I didn't give up to get all the way back around. And then I fight Zab Judah, and then I tear my rotator cuff. And then I'm just like, well, let's do it again. And then the pandemic comes around. Let's do it again. And I just want to lead into the next one.
2 things about the Zab Judah fight. Number 1, that was on Hall of Fame weekend. And they had the legends of the sport always come to Canastota. And the Turning Stone Casino in Verona, New York is a 10-minute drive away. So it's all linked together. How inspired were you to fight on Hall of Fame weekend, seeing all the legends of the sport? Then they were all in the stands in the arena watching you fight.
So pumped. I was excited. I wanted to go take photos with them all afterwards. I was like, oh, I hope every single person comes. And even being in the ring with Zab Judah at the time, I was just so excited. But when the bell rings, and it's time to go to work. But I was just.
And on a very somber note, right after the fight, Zab Judah had to be taken to the hospital, and it was touch and go for a while what his condition was going to be. We didn't even know the next day when word filtered out the condition he was in. Thankfully, he bounced back, and he's apparently okay. How big a concern was that for you? Because, once the switch shuts off, you never want to hurt anyone, and it's pretty devastating if you found out you did, even though it was accidental and you're just doing your job the same way the opponent was doing his.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like I was just doing my job, and it just wasn't fortunate enough that he wasn't okay. But we had to speak to his father the night before, the next morning, and he said, he's okay. He's doing all right. The big tragedy of it all was, Zab Judah went ahead and pressed a lawsuit against me for assault in the boxing ring after that bout, which is still a pending case going on.
Oh, I didn't know. It's the best not to talk about it. Let's stop.
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
stop. I didn't realize that about the lawsuit. I wouldn't have brought that up had I realized. I didn't realize that. So let's cut that. Let's cut that. Mac, you have anything?
Yeah, Cletus, we have a lot of boxing guests on our show because, of course, Jack is a Hall of Fame boxing writer, and he's got a lot of contacts. We have the Iceman John Scully on quite a bit. He's training and boxer, and now he's just an icon out there. He does everything for boxing. He always said, the physical part, it's fine. We all get in, and you can get in great physical condition. It's the mental part of the game, right? When you're in there and you're tired and you're beat up and you're feeling things and you ain't. This is where the true fighters come out, and they all of a sudden they put something together and they get that extra win or that extra thing just from the inside, the determination. You find that's true too. I mean, the physical part is fine, but when you're in the ring and you're in them clenches and it's late in the fight. And you gotta break out. You gotta break out and do your damage. That mental side of you has got to be really the thing that you work off of.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I could run 20 miles. I ran 50 miles one year for my birthday, and it doesn't matter because physically, you can do it, right? Whatever. But it's the mental aspect of it, and the most important way to get to overcome that is putting yourself, whatever your job field is, in an uncomfortable position every single time. As many times you can put yourself in a situation that you're uncomfortable on doing over and over and over and over again, it then becomes, all right, I'm used to living in this kind of like this hell. And for me, that uncomfortable position is actually in the hot yoga studio. I do hot yoga, and it's so hot, and it's filled with like females, and there's like 60-year-olds and they can do everything so easily, and I'm dying, and I'm just, I'm Jewish. Sometimes I'll sit there and be like, I'm about to believe in Jesus today, baby. Like, and you do it every single class gets me like that. This studio is just so, and I'm just like. And it gets you in that uncomfortable situation that nobody wants to be in. And every time I'm there, I'm like, why do I come to this freaking place? Yeah. And man, it's and if you could do that in any field of your life and in your jobs, like if you do that, whatever your business is, you get yourself in a uncomfortable situation over and over and over again. It's so mandatory for your mind.
I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Any particular opponents you would like to fight? Is it just the best fights available? Obviously, the long-range goal, the big goal, is to fight for the title. But is there any particular opponents who hold the title or contenders, or you feel a kind of certain rivalry with? What would you like to do next?
I'm interested in guys that nobody really wants to fight. I'll fight Josh Taylor. Ramirez is another great fight, but I'll even go to England to fight Josh Taylor. The Broner, I almost fought Broner last February, so I would definitely take another. I would take the Broner opportunity.
Would be a fun fight.
Yeah, I would.
But I don't know. Are you big on the trash talking if they give it back to you? Because with Broner, you never know what he's going to say. He might
say whatever he wants. I'm from New York.
Yeah.
I listen. Cletus, when we first had him out, I know Cletus would be fine trash talking. There's no problem with that. And Cletus, when I first interviewed him, as I said, I was looking forward to your fight. It kept getting postponed, and finally it happened. I'm really excited for you. I hope you lose one fight, it builds character. If you learn from it, keep going. I mean, every great fighter for the most part has had at least one loss. And to me, it's just part of growing. And I man, watching you fight, I know you're really into it. And man, I hope you get that shot. And when you get another fight, I'd love to have you back on, especially if you get a nice big fight. I can't wait for you to start getting the big paychecks too, my friend. I can't wait for that.
Oh man, I definitely want to fight 5 times every year, like at least within a year. 5 times is my goal. I'm 35 years old, and my goal is always to fight frequently. Injuries and everything postpone that, but I think I'm really good to do that now.
Okay, excellent. Hey, Cletus,
November 16th, Ring 8 has the monthly meeting. We'd love for you to be a guest speaker if possible.
Absolutely.
You're not committing now, but you can't say you don't know. I'm going to go through DeGuardia. He's going to remind you.
Yeah, I think you wanted me to go the other day. I was like, no, I'm so shocked, but definitely I'll be interested.
Oh, great.
Excellent, Cletus. Thanks for coming on, spending some time with us. Man, good luck, and we'll be watching. Trust me.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks,
Take care. So there you go, folks. The Hebrew Hammer.
He's exciting to watch in the ring. I'll tell you, if entertainment is your thing with boxing, and it usually is with most fans going to the fight, Cletus Selden gives you value for your dollar. You can't dispute that at all.
And I don't know how far he'll go, Jack, but guess what? I'm going to watch the ride because I'll tell you, anybody that's got a punch like that has a shot, man. He may not be the best technically sound fighter, but man, he's got that hot.
The names he mentioned, he would go in as a big underdog. But, I think he's earned this opportunity. He's paid his dues, and that's the main thing. He's earned his opportunity. So in the right situation, when these elite champions aren't fighting one another and they're looking for an alternative to fight someone else, I mean, Cletus Selden has now made himself a good alternative to fight, for one of the champions.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Folks, we're going to take our second break for today. On the other side, we got a very good guest. He got back with me. Jack set him up. He said he would be in, Jack, so we're going to go with that. We still got some NBA to get to, but first, folks, let's get back to our quick break here, and we'll be right back after these few messages.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed. Yeah, well, Kyle's not here. How come? Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Jack is a legendary Hall of Fame boxing writer. Mac spells cat with the letter K. Mac played football and baseball for 10 years, coached football for 12. Jack was the wiffle ball home run king of the neighborhood. Jack was a sparring partner of the middleweight champion of the world, Golden Gloves boxer. Mac still reads cereal boxes at breakfast. Together they form the Sports Odd Couple. Both know sports in every way, but mostly at odds with their commentary and opinion. The Mac and Jack Sports Show, 8 to 10 a.m. on Facebook Live, Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel, Thursday through Sunday. Also on Spotify. Tune in and enjoy the show.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, you guys any...
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, live 8 to 10, Thursday through Sunday. And, Jack, I always get excited when we have boxers on. I don't know why. It just gets me all pumped up. A sport I wish I participated in as I was younger, but was busy doing swimming and football and baseball and a little bit of basketball. So it's one thing I wish I could have.
You mean you went to all the games, Mac, or what?
Yeah, I sat in the stands.
You actually played, okay.
Yeah, I just sat in the stands, yeah. Let's get to the NBA real quick, and hopefully Kenneth will make it in. I got him all set up to come in, so hopefully he makes it in and he can understand that mumbo jumbo we send through the email system to get him on. NBA, Jack. I mean, it's out, it's going. The 76ers do beat the Pelicans without Simmons. They're Embiid with 22 points. Tobias Harris with 20 points and 12 rebounds. Simmons was thrown out of practice, suspended from the game for kind of dogging it in practice.
How's it going to end up, Mac, the Simmons drama? How these things normally end up is the Sixers move on from him. I'd like to see just one time an organization that has backbone. They say, you have a contract. We're not trading you no matter what. If you're going to loaf in practice, we're going to keep suspending you, keep taking your money away. But, how far Simmons going to push it? Is he going to start a fight with one of his teammates? Is he going to make it impossible to be there? If he does, you could keep suspending him. You could sit him at the end of the bench. It's also how much Simmons can take. He can only take so much of this from his end. Who's going to buckle first? What's probably going to happen, Mac? Another team is going to offer boatload of draft choices, and they're going to work out a deal eventually.
The problem over there right now, Jack, is that all the teams know they want to get rid of him. So why should they offer them anything? I mean, they could say, we'll take his contract and see you later if you want him out. I mean, that puts the other teams in a very, very good position for a trade. So the 76ers are over a hump right now. I mean, if suppose let's just use this scenario, right? Suppose the 76ers say to the Lakers, hey, listen, and let's not count salary cap, just right on the board, right straight on the board. We'll give you Simmons, but we want, and the Lakers turn around and say, we ain't giving you nothing. We'll just take Simmons in his contract. What would the 76ers have to say to that?
One of the weaker teams in the NBA, okay, who has draft capital, would make a deal for Simmons because they want to kind of become relevant. It could be a team like, let's say, the Sacramento Kings. Not too bad of a team, but a player like Simmons makes them a playoff contender. All of a sudden, there's someone out there, OKC, who has a lot of draft capital they got in the from before. It could be the Houston Rockets, who had draft capital in the James Harden deal, can give some of it to the 76ers. There's someone out there can make a deal, but on principle, I'm talking about.
Right.
The Sixers think we're not going to let this guy, force the issue on us. I want to see one owner out there who says, you're not, by acting immature, I'm not going to buckle into that type of behavior. Someone who has that type of principle. I could also understand from Simmons' viewpoint, mentally he's out of it. He just can't play for the Sixers. We've all had a job. A lot of us have had a job in our life that we hated going to. We just can't function there. 1 hour seems like an eternity on that job. And that's what Simmons might be going through with the 76ers. But he has a choice. He's made enough money already to last him the rest of his life, I think. But NBA players want more. And he's leaving an incredible amount of money on the table if he doesn't play. And that's the only reason he showed up to begin with at 76er camp.
I mean, I'm with you, Jack. I hope that one day some owner in any sport kind of shows a little backbone and says, guess what, you're here and that's a contract and you're going to abide by your contract. But do you want that around? They're a championship team, the 76ers. I don't say they'll win the championship, but they're in the mix. So, I mean, I really don't know what's going to happen with the 76ers and Ben Simmons. But I'm telling you right now, Jack, I mean, I would, as the Houston Rockets or even a team that's not really is on the bubble of maybe being a playoff team, I wouldn't give them nothing. Why would I want to do that? I mean, honestly.
Well, you have to get them. Some team's going to have to take the initiative and offer the Sixers a very nice package. One team has to, because if none of them do, they're not going to give Simmons away. It's just not going to happen. They'll play this out. They'll keep suspending him. They're not giving him away unless they get really top-of-the-line value in return. And it always happens you do. Look at Houston and James Harden. They weren't just going to give him away, and the Nets gave Houston a massive package, okay?
But man, you can't compare Simmons to Harden. There's no comparison, Jack. Backstage, let's bring Kenneth up. Jack is the one that gave me his information, and so I'll let Jack do the introduction since I'm not as aware of his accomplishments as you are, Jack. I'm just happy that we got somebody on that knows as much as you, maybe more. I'm hoping he knows more, Jack, so I can rub it in later. So let's bring up
Kenneth knows other sports. He probably has an opinion on this Simmons.
Yeah, let's see what he's got to say about this. Bring in Kenneth. How you doing, Kenneth?
Hey, Kenneth.
I'm doing great, Jack. Always great to see you. It's been so long, and Mac, great meeting you. I have no comment on the Ben Simmons situation. I am just, I can't even believe what's going on right now. But this is the 21st century. This is, the time we're in, and we're seeing things like this more and more.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, if he doesn't have an opinion on Ben Simmons, he must have one on Aaron Boone's 3-year extension. The Yankee cap opened that up.
Yeah, I have no comment on that either because I don't want to break anything in my house.
Don't worry, I've already broke some stuff.
Now, for those not familiar, Kenneth you have a podcast with the PBC.
That's right. I'm the editorial director and PR director as well for PBC, and also host the PBC podcast.
And Kenneth is an outstanding boxing writer as well. And what else, Kenneth? What else am I missing?
I had some great mentors like Jack Hirsch. Yes. So he's really complimenting himself.
He does that quite a bit, Kenneth. Don't worry about it. So Kenneth, on that PB show, the podcast over there, do you cover all sports or mainly boxing?
Just boxing. I mean, we cover boxing. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And the whole scope of boxing, a focus on PBC, but we cover all boxing. Yeah.
Yeah, Kenneth, there are a lot of different boxing entities out there, and that sometimes prohibits certain big fights from taking place. One comes to mind, Terrence Crawford against Errol Spence. Errol Spence is with the PBC. Terrence Crawford is with Top Rank. And to be honest, the PBC, most of the top welterweights have been aligned with the PBC. So Terrence Crawford, in a way, has been on the outside. Right. But from a business viewpoint, I can understand how, different promotional entities do business. But it frustrates boxing fans, not having seen a Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence fight. For the time being, Crawford's fighting Sean Porter. So that's a very interesting fight, obviously. And it's Sean Porter with the PBC, right? But he stepped out to make this particular fight.
Well, we've been trying to make that fight happen for a long time, is my understanding. And finally, the WBO mandated it, which sort of brought both parties to the negotiating table. With respect to Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, I don't think it's really a promotional issue that's hindering that fight from happening. I think it's a financial issue where we have two big names and the pot is just simply not big enough for the two promotional entities to come together and make the fight. But we've come together to make Sean Porter versus Terrence Crawford. We just came together to make Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder for the third time. But unfortunately, with Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford, I think that what the guarantees would be for the fighters may not necessarily be what's in the pot, in terms of what that fight would generate. I don't know if it's there yet. That's something that Bob Arum has said candidly when he's not going back and forth and blaming promotional entities. And I think that's really the issue. I still think it's a possibility for next year. I know Errol's been given the clearance to start training in November after his eye surgery. I just don't know how long Errol can stay at 147. And if he can, I know he wants that fight. But we may see it at another weight. Who knows?
Well,
yeah,
go ahead.
Matt.
No, go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, you have a good friend who manages out of Wallen, Zach Levin, and it had to have been a major disappointment. I just wrote a story on Otto Wallen that was supposed to run the week of the Dylan White fight, which was October 30th. Now, Dylan White pulls out of the fight. I have to assume it was a valid injury because supposedly he's in line to fight Tyson Fury. Dylan White, he's been, in all fairness to him, he has been waiting for an opportunity to fight for the title for a while. But what does this do for Fight and his management team as far as Otto Wallen goes? You've been training, you've been focusing on this big fight, and then they pull the rug out from under you a couple of weeks before. Something seems unfair about the whole thing. I mean, and they might not reschedule this. That's what's
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but the fact that I understand an injury, those things happen in boxing, but why not reschedule? Why is the fight canceled altogether and we're just moving on with our lives? That suggests to me something a little more nefarious. I feel badly for Otto because he's a good guy, a good fighter. I thought he would have beaten Dillian White. So certainly a risky fight. And I also, Dillian White, there's been a campaign as far as, Dillian White being the number one contender, the mandatory contender. I've waited and waited and waited. You turned down opportunities to fight Anthony Joshua. You turned down a title eliminator against Dominic Brazil, and he turned down a title eliminator against Luis Ortiz. He turned all of that down and wonders why he was never named mandatory, even though he was number one. And then he got knocked out by Alexander Povetkin. And then, won the rematch. And as then became the mandatory. Now you have this fight with Otto Wallin. You realize there's an opportunity to fight Tyson Fury, and this elbow injury appears. I understand that Wallin's promoter, Dimitri Salidas, asked for proof. I don't know what that's going to do, but to me, if it's something legitimate, you postpone the fight. You don't cancel it.
I agree with that. What do you think about the heavyweights right now, Kenneth? I mean, you've got some really good fights that could be made, right? You got Usyk sitting out there who could fight Wilder. I think that would be a great fight. I mean, you got a technician versus the big guy in the ring. I think that would be a great fight. And even with the loss of Wilder, I mean, a Wilder Joshua fight I think would bring some excitement, because you got Joshua with his kind of I don't want to say luggage, but a lot of people have some reservations about him. Great athlete, good technician against a guy that could knock you out with his right hand. I mean, I think those two fights would be awesome if they could make them.
Yeah, and I'm not counting Joshua out at all. I think that it was a tough loss against Usyk, who's a superb technician.
Yeah.
But look, Lennox Lewis lost twice early in his career. I still see all the tools in Joshua that could make him a great heavyweight. I think he just needs to go back to the lab. He's actually, what is he? He may be the youngest of all three top. He is the youngest heavyweight out of the top four or so. He's still 31, and heavyweights tends to take a little more time to mature. So I still think there's he's not at his peak yet, as far as I'm concerned. I do think mentally maybe he needs to, look within himself and see what went wrong there. Because even in that Usyk fight, I thought that Joshua showed a lot of skill. Usyk obviously had better skill, but more importantly, in the later rounds when things got deep, Usyk showed a little more grit. He showed a little more dog, a little more conditioning, a little more experience, and that proved to be the difference. But I think that Joshua can come back. I know Deontay just had surgery earlier this week, so he's going to be out for a while. And that was a grueling fight against Tyson Fury, so I think he should take a well-deserved rest.
Sure.
But if he's up for it and he wants to come back next year, any of those fights would be great. And I mean, Deontay would fight anyone. I think after that performance against Tyson Fury, no one can question his heart and his courage.
You mentioned Lennox Lewis. When he suffered a couple of losses, he changed trainers, went with Emmanuel Stewart. It turned out to be a good move. But historically, changing trainers doesn't help on balance. It really doesn't. But in the case of Anthony Joshua, reportedly his promoter, Eddie Hearn, is urging him to get a new training team, moving forward for the Usyk rematch. Whether Joshua does or not is unclear. What's your feeling on the matter?
Well, he's in the U.S. this week. He visited Eddie Reynoso, Virgil Hunter, Robert Garcia, and Ronnie Shields. So he's in the market. I think it's unfortunate that he'll jump into the rematch with Usyk, because you point out that usually changing trainers doesn't work. And in the case of Lennox Lewis, he didn't just, they took time to build him back up. It wasn't like, okay, you jump back into the fire again. You work with your trainer and you get better and better and better. And so I would like for Joshua to have that opportunity, because I think it's going to be really difficult to beat Usyk in the rematch. I don't love that as his next fight.
Eddie Reynoso trains Andy Ruiz. Could you imagine he goes with Eddie Reynoso and Joshua and Ruiz are sparring all the time? And, I assume Eddie Reynoso's a honest, loyal guy in the sense that he wouldn't be sabotaging Joshua and Ruiz's behalf, learning more about his tendencies in sparring, and then moving on from Joshua if Ruiz is in a position to fight him. Yeah. But it's an interesting soap opera scenario that could unfold.
Yeah, I think he should go with Ronnie Shields. I think that's a good trainer for him, who might be able to teach him to fight like the big man that he is. Reynoso, I don't know. I'd love to be a spectator at those sparring sessions, though.
I think he should stay put and just get a physical trainer to work his conditioning to the point where he's not going to get fatigued. That's all I think it is. I don't think there's anything the matter with his boxing. I think he just tends to fall a little apart during patches of a fight. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. And that's always been his issue, is that it gets late, his stamina starts to fade. It's a problem. I agree. I don't know what he can do about that. I know he's tried losing weight. He's a little stiff, he needs to loosen up a little bit. Maybe he needs to take some dance classes.
Mac, Kenneth would appreciate this. If I like to sometimes compare baseball players to boxers, I would compare Joshua to Gary Sanchez, kind of the tendencies in a way.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I mean, certainly the capability is there, but there are long stretches where you wonder where it is.
Yeah, why you sign the guy? Yes, believe me, there's a lot of wondering about that right now, Kenneth. But any new heavyweights that you've seen? I mean, because today, I've been following boxing. I tell everybody my first boxing match I watched, and it was one of the greatest of all time, the fight of the century, was Ali versus Frazier 1. That was my first fight. I fell in love with boxing and followed it through the years. But it's really crazy today because we really don't know, the public, general public, who the top contenders are, because every boxing promotions and all these sanctioning bodies have different people in different orders, and we really don't see a lot of fights today. So, we used to know who the contenders were, right? We knew Foreman, we knew Norton, we knew Corey, we knew all these guys because they were on all the time, and we looked forward to their fights. Now it's kind of like a crapshoot, like, oh, we're going to fight this guy, and we don't know who the heck they're talking about. Is two questions for you, Kenneth. Is there any young heavyweights that you're excited about that are coming up? And two, can they do a better job overall, please, of telling us who the major contenders are and show us more fights?
Yeah, first question, yes. Jared Anderson is one person that comes to mind. He's an undefeated rising heavyweight who I think has everything, and apparently gave Tyson Fury hell in sparring. In fact, the rumors were he was beating Tyson Fury up. He's an undefeated young heavyweight. I think he's 21 or 22 years old. Frank Sanchez is another good young heavyweight who just scored a huge win on the Wilder Fury undercard. Huge upset win. He's an excellent boxer. He's with Eddie Reynoso, who trains Canelo Alvarez. I really like those two guys, and there's some other guys. Filip Hrgovic is another really good up and coming heavyweight. I think that. But of the guys I just listed, only one of them is American. And I think that's been the issue in terms of knowing who the boxers are as far as heavyweights. That's been an issue for a while now. The reality is that, and Jack knows this, is that if you're 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", then you're probably a tight end or a power forward. They're probably not going to go into boxing. So I think we've lost a lot of that, unfortunately. So that, to answer the second part of your question, that's part of the issue. But Frank Sanchez and Jared Anderson are two heavyweights I think to look out for. Filip Hrgovic is another one. And there's some other up-and-comers. Cassius Chaney, who's with Stephen Breadman Edwards, is another good young heavyweight. We just have to wait and see. But in general, heavyweights take longer to mature, or at least it seems that way now.
Boxing, it's about name value. Before you came on, we had Cletus Selden, the junior welterweight, as a guest, who won a fight at the Barclays Center last Saturday. And just jokingly around, I said, him and Adrian Broner would be a fun fight. And Broner's with the PBC. And now that, I think of it, I'm joking around, that would be a nice match to put on at the Barclays Center, because Cletus Selden says he can talk back. So all the smack talk, and Broner keeps getting recycled. It's never over for Adrian Broner. And it would be a fun fight.
Yeah, and Cletus sells tickets too. It's a great fight in New York, and I like Cletus Selden. I mean, he's been around for a while now. Yeah. Has had some big wins, and I think with respect to Adrian Broner, he just needs to get back in the saddle and rededicate himself to the gym. With the name value that he carries, I mean, all his fights are must watch. So it's a good fight. And I'm sure Cletus is ready. We just got to get Adrian ready.
Now, I never met Al Heyman. Most people haven't, but I love Sam Watson. He's one of my favorite people in boxing. I absolutely love Sam Watson. What a great, great guy. And he's Al Heyman's right-hand man.
Right.
But Al Heyman kind of changed the face of boxing for a while because he was overly generous to the fighters with some of the purses he gave them. And maybe he spoiled them, it was like a rich kid being given so much, and all of a sudden all the money isn't there anymore. And instead of driving the fanciest car, they just have to drive a very nice new car, but not the fanciest one on the market. How hard is it to deal with certain fighters? Do they overstate their value? They want a lot more money than realistically they're worth.
Well, I would say this, and that's a great question. I would say that, the money is still there for the fighters. But I think that when folks talk about how Al changed the game, what he did was that the money that the fighters get, it wasn't like he just redirected it from the promoter to the fighter. Back in the day, the promoter was the one who sort of oversaw everything and would, you take money from they would negotiate the deal with the network. They would negotiate the deal with the venue. They would tell the fighter how much they were getting paid. They would get all that money. And then from that money, they would tell the fighter okay, I'm giving you this amount, and so forth. Whereas Al Heyman's business model is, no, the money should go directly to the fighter, and then he pays everybody else, because the reality is that, in the 70s and the 80s, yes, a promoter like Don King and a promoter like Bob Arum, it was necessary that they get out and promote. But in the 21st century, is a guy standing on the podium speaking for 15 minutes really promoting the fight, or is it the network that promotes the fight now? Is it the fighter on social media that promotes the fight now? So the reality is, and not to discount what they do, but the reality is, in terms of promotion, a promoter in boxing is nothing but a glorified event coordinator.
But sometimes you do get a promoter who develops a fighter from the beginning of his pro career and builds him up over a period of a few years. And I'm not talking about one of the major promoters. It could be, I don't want to use the word second tier promoter, but not one of the big names like Heyman, Arum, Hearn, someone with a little less known, and they build him up. And then when he's ready to cash in, then it becomes a bit of a conflict. How much is that promoter worth? Because he did invest years in the fight, and the fighter wouldn't have gotten to that point without him. I'm not sure what the answer is at times.
Well, I would say this, that, our thinking is that that's the manager's job. That it's the manager's job to develop the fighter alongside a promoter. And it's okay if you have a promoter that you work with, and that's where, your character comes into play. But our thinking is that there's no need for you to sign a long-term contract with a promoter, that a promoter shouldn't have that power over you where he can dictate what you're supposed to do. He's supposed to be working for you rather than you working for the promoter. So to get back to your original comment, the money that the fighters were getting was just money that typically would go to the promoter. And Al Heyman had a very different business model where, as a manager or advisor, he took a very, very small percent, very, very small. Anywhere between 1% and 15%.
Wow.
And you would not pay him until the payments wouldn't start. It's not that they would accrue, but they wouldn't even start until you made your first $100,000 check. And in some cases, that was negotiable. You wouldn't start paying him until you made your first $1 million check or your $2 million check. And so that was very enticing to boxers, to know that not only are you going to get the money that would typically go to the promoters, but this guy is not going to stick his hand in and try and extract some of that. So, but the real issue, Jack, is that these fighters, a lot of these fighters like Deontay Wilder, Keith Thurman, those fighters who are beneficiaries of that, they have now grown beyond network TV, and now you have to put them on pay-per-view to satisfy their monetary demands.
Not giving any particular names of any fighters. Let's leave them nameless. Does Al Heyman maybe feel a sense of betrayal by some fighters? No names mentioned, because he has built up a number of guys, and when they get to another point, maybe they might look elsewhere as well. Does he feel maybe a small sense of betrayal at times?
I can't speak for him, but I can say this. When Danny Jacobs wanted to fight on DAZN, Al Heyman negotiated that deal for him. When Mikey Garcia wanted to fight on DAZN, Al Heyman negotiated that deal for him. When Jesse Vargas wanted to fight on DAZN, Al Heyman negotiated that deal for him, because the best reference is a fighter telling another fighter, this guy isn't trying to lock me down. This guy doesn't want to put me in a headlock. Heck, he helps me even when it doesn't help him, So I don't know if he feels any kind of way about it. I'm sure he'd love to have them all under his umbrella. But if there's an opportunity for a fighter to go and make big money, like in the case of Danny Jacobs, he's going to tell him, you got to go get that money. But hey, when they bring you that offer, why don't I take a peek at it and just make sure that they're not going to do anything, screw you in any way whatsoever, and then you're free to go. A lot of our fighters fight on other platforms. Heck, there are fighters who he negotiates deals for that people never know about, So I don't know if he feels any kind of way about it, but I think he's comfortable knowing that he has a huge client base, and that even the clients who fight on other platforms will still thank him and have that appreciation toward him.
Yeah, Mac, I don't know you're aware. Al Heyman is considered the equivalent of the Howard Hughes of boxing. People just don't see Al Heyman, around. They see his right-hand man, Sam Watson, who To me, he's one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's incredible.
I definitely know of him. Definitely. Yeah. One question for you. We're getting close to the end of the show, Kenneth, but I want, we ask a lot of opinions of our different boxing guests that come on. The YouTube boxers and the entertainment value as opposed to the roots of boxing, the hardcore boxing fans. What do you think about the new boxing events out there that aren't really nothing but fun? Does it hurt boxing or does it help boxing, or is it a little both?
I think they're fun and sometimes funny. I think that they've been around for a long time, just in different forms. And you've had fighters, in the WWE, even Muhammad Ali participated in exhibitions and so forth. I don't want to say it's a fad, but let's check back in 2-3 years and see if this is still around. I mean, I think it's cool for the time being, and I think it's attracting eyeballs to the sport. Is it going to keep eyeballs on the sport? That I don't know, but if these fighters are serious about the sport, then at some point they're going to have to fight somebody, and then we'll see what happens.
I don't think that will ever happen, and I don't see any of those guys get in the ring with a real ranked or even a gatekeeper. Right. I don't see that happening at all. They'll box anybody but that. So Kenneth,
I might get tired of it.
Yes, I hope so. I really do, because I it's not that I don't like it. It's just like it kind of, in a way, not that I've never watched one. I would never pay per view any of that stuff. But I mean, I think sometimes it kind of makes a mockery out of a science, a great sport. It would be like them putting together a football team of all singers. The Brady Bunch versus the Partridge, something like that. And maybe maybe that would be people would watch it, but I would kind of be insulted by it. But it is what it is.
You can watch anything, so.
Yes. Yeah. Kenneth, I mean, thanks for coming in. Jack, thank you for introducing me to him. I mean, I think I've seen you on a network before watching some other boxing things. I pretty much remember you. You're a great guest, great guy, and thanks for coming on, Kenneth. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kenneth.
Thanks, Jack.
I'm glad it guts to wear that Yankee cap on here. I'm a big Yankee fan myself, and it sounds like you like to vent about the Yankees the same way Mac does.
I've been doing that since 2009, so yeah.
I hear you, Kenneth. You have a great day, my friend.
Yeah. Take care.
Take it easy, Kenneth. So there you go, Jack. Thanks for bringing him on. He was very knowledgeable, a very good guest, man. I mean,
good man.
I think I've seen him on one of the boxing podcasts. Once in a while, I'll go through the internet and watch stuff, and I'm almost positive I've seen him on one of them before. He's very familiar, and the voice was very familiar and everything. But great guest. So, folks, tomorrow, me and Jack will be doing our Friday show where we'll have our weekly guests on that normally come on every week. Keith is down somewhere in the Bahamas or something, Jack. Hopefully he can make it in. The Philly guy, I imagine, is getting ready to go to Vegas to watch the Raiders-Eagles play. And, we'll have Sports Scope. No, not Sports Scope guy. Oh, my God. Now, Byron Williams.
Butler?
No, he'll be on Sunday. Byron Williams will join us tomorrow. Always fun having him on. He does a great job breaking down the games and talking about the Giants, even though, it's not fun to talk about the Giants right now. But let's, in a quick closing here, let's talk a little bit about the Knicks. The Knicks go up against the Celtics. A thrilling game, 2 overtimes. You had, of course, Fournier. They paid a lot for this guy, Jack. He came through last night. Now, I don't know if he'll come through all year. I mean,
hit a bunch of threes.
Yeah, man. I mean, he's a former Celtic. And, of course, we had, the
Kemba Walker. He had a bit of an off night, but they still won. And Mitch Robinson grabbing all the rebounds. And it was a real team effort. They have a certain chemistry there.
Toppin scored Gedgy double figures last night, Jack. I mean, you've been talking about maybe we should get rid of him.
Who's this?
Toppin. He had.
I didn't say no. I said, it's make or break this year for him. He played over 20 minutes. Okay, but it was double overtime, so that's deceiving. But this is make or break. Either Obi Toppin's got to take a step up this year. They didn't play him much last year. They only played him about 10 minutes a game, which was a concern.
Right. He did get, I think he got 14 points, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, Randall with the big score, Fournier doing his thing, and like you said, Robinson with the rebound. So a good start. Celtics play tough too. Maybe they'll be in the mix again this year. I hope so, Jack. It's fun when the Celtics and the Knicks are in the mix at the end.
46 points for Jaylen Brown. He had a terrific game yesterday.
He sure did. So, folks, please join us tomorrow on our Friday show. Saturdays, me and Jack's debate show. We'll have Dr. Paul Semedinger and Brett Kellen. And then our big football show Sunday. We're killing it in views, Jack. With our big football Sunday show where we have on, of course, Dallas legend Jim Jeffcoat and a lot of previews, a hopping show. So, folks, 3 more good days with you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow on the Mac and Jack Sports Show. Have a great